Hi everybody and welcome back to another episode here on the Manager's Journey YouTube channel with me, Josh Richards. Today's video is another session breakdown. It's just a one today, but it's a session aimed at roughly under 12s to under 14s, that sort of age group. And we're looking at technical elements here today. So those are a quick sharp movement to lose a marker. There's the players scanning and checking the shoulders, having that awareness of what's around them, mainly with the respect of losing this defender that's coming after them, as well as their body shape, playing on the half turn, receiving the ball and protecting the ball in the half turn on the half turn. I think this age range that we're looking at here is probably quite ideal because you're introducing some new elements as well as expanding upon elements preferably and hopefully introduced at a younger age group. Of course, this session, elements of this can be taken and used at any age group, whether that's right down to the younger ages or even into senior football. But I think this is quite basic in its approach and what we actually do with the session. But like I say, some elements, especially towards the final progression, could be used at an older age group, or you could even incorporate your own idea. So let's move on to the first step of the session. So here we are with our workspace. As we can see here, for this example, it's effectively half a pitch, but your workspace obviously depends on the numbers you're using and their age group and how much space they'd require to do their moving and passing, that sort of stuff. So obviously here we have 3 sets of 6. That's 18 players in total. I think you could probably get away with going down to 3 sets of 4, possibly even 3 sets of 3, but I would probably say that's very on the knuckle as the bare minimum. But here, setting up, we've got 6 blue players acting as servers around the outside of the area. We got 3 red and blacks. I'm just going to call them reds for this. That will start off as the players doing the technical elements, and then we have 6 green players who are shadowing the reds. So they're effectively acting as defenders just to keep pressure and to incorporate a more match-like feel. So it's going to be starting off as sort of semi-opposed, and then we're going to gradually bring it into being fully opposed. So first things first, what is this first bit of the session? So it's, like I said, it's very basic. So we're focusing on these 2 players here and then this server here. So then it's just a case of the red's always going to lead where they're going, and obviously the greens will have to follow. So for this example, they're coming into this cone here. The red gets there, makes a little movement off to the side, receives the ball, plays it back to the server, and then the red then will lead off to find a different server. So like I say, it's very basic, and it's obviously just to get them moving around and incorporating the very fundamentals of the technical elements that we're looking at here. If we bring it back, so they're now just they've moved to their blue cone. Now, whether or not you use the cone is up to you as the coach, but I think if you're especially incorporating and introducing the sudden quick movement to lose the marker, I think it could be quite an easier way to break it down for the players if it's something new to them. So obviously you don't want them to stop once they reach the blue cone. You don't want them to run in, stop, and then move. Obviously everything, you'd want it to be in quite a fluid motion, but obviously breaking it down, just get them to come in, get to their marker, and they make their quick sudden movement off to the sides. This is where they get into their body shape. So you don't want them running square and then getting into their shape. Can they move sideways so they're already more or less in the half turn to receive the ball? And as they're doing so, they're obviously looking up where can they play the ball. So obviously they've got to return the ball to the server. But it's not just that, because then once they return the ball, they're in the half turn, so they can see where they're going to go next. They can see where their space is to make their next run. This would be quite crucial as we in 2 progressions. But even more than that, taking it just before they even get to the blue cone. So roughly, probably around here. Obviously, just forget that the green's in front and pretend the red's in front for the minute. But as they're nearing the cone, the player should be scanning, checking their shoulder. Where is their defender? Where's their marker? Because obviously, if the marker's not near them, in the game situation, they could obviously just receive the ball where the blue cone is. But say the defender's closer to them, which it is here, they'll obviously be scanning. They know where the defender is. They're looking for space to receive the ball, and then that's when the quick sudden movement arises to simply just move off, lose their marker. Now obviously here, all 6 pairs will be moving at once, so obviously it could be quite hectic. So therefore that's why you need that spatial awareness, always looking, getting the players to play with their heads up, eyes forwards, always scanning, checking their shoulders, because not only have they got to worry about their defender, they've also got to worry about other pairs moving. So obviously once they've gotten to this point, you've played their ball back, obviously you're still going to be scanning to see where you can go and receive the ball next. Obviously there's no point running, for example, for this server, because just obviously here there's two pairs already near this cone, so it's unlikely you need to get there. What you could do to make it a bit more fun and engaging is have certain obstacles around the course. So if they're going to a server but on their way they need to go in and out of some poles to help with their body shape and their angles, or even just anything you want to really, just to try and spice this up. As I say, this is obviously quite basic in its approach, and it's more so they can grasp the concepts of the scanning as they're moving, their quick sudden movement off to receive the ball, obviously getting into the half turn. Basically all those elements we're going to be looking at and to incorporate. This is quite a good little way to introduce them or build upon them, and you can focus on them in a sort of a semi-unopposed fashion. Now obviously you probably want to be doing this for a minute ago, so obviously after the first minute bring the servers in, rotate round, so obviously then the reds will come out, become the servers, the greens will then become the in possession team if you like, and then obviously rotating that round. But that pretty much is the first stage of this session, and like I say, obviously the key elements you've got to be looking at and ensuring is the scanning as they're moving in, obviously the sudden movement, and then obviously the body shape when they're receiving the ball and then playing it back. If they need to take the touch, they can take the touch to control the ball, but obviously as the actual passing and actual movement element of it is unopposed, they can play it back first time if needs be. Obviously make sure they're still in the correct body shape to receive the ball and protect the ball, because the next progression will make all of this opposed effectively. Here we are now with our first progression. So we're starting it as, so they've already made their movement into the cone here, but instead of it being unopposed now, the defender's going to come with them. So when the ball gets played in, obviously receiving the ball in the half turn, good body shape, they're going to hold on to the ball, and the defender is going to just put pressure on, physical pressure, coming in from the back, the sides, just to incorporate the concept of protecting the ball with the half turn. So obviously you always need to keep your body between the ball and the defender. Brings it into a more game-like situation where the pressure comes in. Nothing too crazy. Obviously the greens aren't necessarily trying to win the ball, just put enough pressure and trying to get to win the ball, but obviously there's no real emphasis on them winning the ball. Maybe just get the server to count 3 seconds. Once the 3 seconds is done, obviously they'll play the ball back and move off as before. So again, it's just a very basic progression. It introduces another concept of defending the ball whilst in the half turn. Not necessarily even just the half turn, obviously we're using the half turn just to obviously receive the ball, but however it ends up, just getting that real physical pressure on the ball to defend it and keep hold of it. We could be shielding the ball out for a goal kick or to win a corner or anything really. So obviously it's just that defending the ball with your body and getting them used to that contact. It could possibly be in a half turn, but don't worry too much whether they lose their body shape with this. It's just so they can get used to defending the ball and keeping on the ball with pressure on them really. So yeah, as I say, it's very basic progression, very quick and easy one to just demonstrate and incorporate. And now we'll move on to the second progression, which will incorporate a 1-2 and build upon everything we've worked on earlier. So moving into our second progression now, we're including a 1-2, so it's going to be the same as the last progression. So obviously they're still going to come in. By this point you could probably get away with removing all the cones if you want to. Obviously you'd have to gauge that with how well the players have understood coming in, getting their distances worked out before making their quick sudden movement. They're going to still come in, still make their movement, the defender's going to stay with them, they're going to receive the ball, give it back, but in this time they're going to move off again, receive the ball again, and then play it back. So now we're incorporating not just one movement here but another movement there. So obviously for this example I've got the green to stop further away from here. Obviously you want the defender to stay with them as much as they can obviously like in a realistic setting, but obviously I wanted to use this one as a sort of a demonstration to show just quick sudden movement off to lose their marker, to get you, well, that's probably like a yard, maybe 2 yards of space to just get the ball, receive it, then give it back. So obviously now we're going to be looking at first time passes, literally just getting the ball, giving it back. Obviously their movement here is normal, just quick, sudden. Obviously the defender's still going to be with you, they're definitely going to be with you here because it's only a case of an extra 3 or 4 yards or however many yards or steps they've taken. So obviously this is going to be the real contested area, and then it's here once you've given the ball back, it's then their movement here, quick sudden sharp burst into new space that's going to lose their marker now. So essentially it's the same as what we did in the very first start, but instead of coming in this way and then losing their marker here, essentially they're here doing a different movement. So that's why I said earlier that their body shape and their vision and their scanning and looking to where the space is quite important here, because now they've actually got to move into another space to receive the ball. So obviously I've used it here, so they just sort of moved over here because obviously that's where the space is. However, if there was more space down here, it could simply be receive the ball here, play it back, and then make a quick sudden movement here to receive the ball and play it back again. So it all depends on obviously where they are in relation to the server, where the space is in relation to them, and how they can incorporate that into making their next movement to receive the ball and play it off. So obviously once they've done this, the second pass, obviously then again they turn off, find a different server. So as I said, you could probably get away with removing the cones now if you hadn't done before, or if you didn't even start with them, that's up to you, that's fine. With this one, because it more relies on their understanding of getting their distances right, looking for the actual space to make their second movement, removing the cones could actually challenge them a lot more, because alright, they might remember roughly where the cone placement was, but instead of just always coming this way, for example, they could come that way to make their first movement to receive the ball, to go out that way. Obviously encourage them to make any sort of run, so even if it was that they come in like normal, but instead of just running across there, they move that way and then come back. So any type of movement to beat their marker, just the initial drop the shoulder, go one way, look to go one way, to then go the other. Obviously it's up to you, and give them that freedom to trial and learn and see what works best for them. Maybe keep this one going a bit longer, because obviously you need to incorporate added time for the extra movement and the actual pass. So maybe even 1.5 minutes this time each. That should give them plenty of time to try different movements, understand the concept of you're not just losing your marker once now, you got to lose them twice. Let's not lose focus of, even as they're still coming in here, they're checking their shoulder to find where their marker is. So obviously the scanning and the checking of the shoulders is very important now, because not only have they got to do it where they are here, they still have to do it where they're here. So they know actually my marker's on my right shoulder, so if the marker was here, oh, that'd be easier for me to burst off into this space, might lose them. Whereas obviously for this example, the defender's quite central, so you could get away with making a quick movement here or here, as we did for this demonstration. So obviously, like I say, give the players that freedom to think of their own movements, to try and lose their marker, find their own space to receive the second pass. Okay, so now we are for the final progression of this session. So it's just a possession game, very simple in its approach. So basically, the Reds in the middle, we're starting off playing with the servers, so effectively it becomes a 12 versus 6 game of possession. All 5 balls being played at once. This server plays into here. There's no need to play it back to the server. The player can then dribble around and play. So it's just simple. It's just a possession rondo, if you like, with 5 balls going at once. So obviously the defenders don't have to stay with the original man they stay with. They can defend however they want. And if they win the ball or they intercept it, they're just kicking it out of the square. So there's a point system in this, so set a time limit, 2 minutes, 3 minutes ago, and it depends on how you want to do this. So you could either have it, the amount of balls left in play for the in possession team by the end of the time limit, so that either means actual in the box or with the servers, that's fine, they're fine there. So obviously it can be a point per ball. So if there's 2 balls left in play, the in possession team, which will be the red team, gets 2 points. If you wanted to do it for the defenders, obviously a point for every ball that's not in play by the end of the time. So obviously in that situation it'd be 3 points to defenders. Obviously play for the time limit or until all the balls are out of play. The servers can't be tackled, although they can be pressured to make a bad pass or force a mistake. And obviously you need to ensure that if a defender is playing the ball out, the server doesn't go and receive it. Otherwise that could cause a bit of chaos with the point system. So I'll just let this example play out. Obviously the movements aren't exactly how they would be in real life. But yeah, so you just get a general feel of it. So obviously it's bringing everything together. So there's going to be lots of sharp movements, moving into space. Where are they looking? Where's their next pass? Obviously, the communication aspect is important. Try to encourage the players not to come in close. Can you play a bit more of a longer pass from the server inside to the inside to the possession team? Like that pass there is obviously quite a long one. And obviously, it's just a simple turn out play into there. So obviously, it's a free game. There's no touch limits unless you want to impose them. Obviously, you could incorporate a pass limit if you wanted to. But as I say, it's just a free game to incorporate all the elements we've worked on. So obviously, making sure they're still looking, they're still scanning. They know where the space around them is. They know where there's a movement to play the ball into their teammate. Or if it's just easier just to give the ball back to the server and make another movement themselves. Obviously, their body shape is very important here because now it's a free game. Playing on the half turn and not closing your body is quite important, because obviously if you're closing your body and coming in square, the only way you can really go is giving the ball back the way it came. Obviously that makes the defender's jobs very easy. As a defender myself, I very much like playing against players that literally just play backwards. All I had to do was just stay with my man then. So obviously getting them playing on the half turn, opening the game up, opening up the space to then create the space if there isn't some with a pass, or being receptive. So even if you haven't got the ball, you're still looking, you're still not just closed off body shape, you're still opening up, looking for where the space is, where can you make your run into the space to receive the ball. Now obviously, as I say, for the defending team, there isn't really much emphasis on them. Obviously they can defend how they like. If you want to incorporate elements of pressing in 2s or 3s, obviously that depends on the numbers you've got, but probably 2s in this sort of situation. Maybe bring that in for the defending team, so they have something to work towards, rather than sort of just not necessarily aimlessly running around, but so they don't just run around, try and tackle, win the ball. But of course, because this is focusing on the in possession teams, obviously receiving the ball, how they're receiving the ball, the technical elements of then creating the space, looking for where the space is. Obviously, the defenders are being left behind here. So if you want to incorporate other elements to give the defender something to think about rather than just chasing the ball around and winning it and getting outside the box, that's perfectly fine. Of course, you could develop this further when the servers follow their pass inside, so you could obviously create overloads in the middle, whatever you want to do from there really. Obviously, like I said, this whole session is obviously quite basic, but it's obviously looking to introduce elements, the technical elements of, as I say, the quick sharp movement to lose their marker, incorporate the scanning, the looking from a younger age group, as well as the half turn, which hopefully was introduced at a younger age group as well, and to incorporate it in more of a game related scenario. Obviously when it started off as semi opposed and now it's obviously fully opposed with this possession game situation. So obviously, like I say, some elements of this can be used for older age groups or even younger age groups, or you can incorporate your own stuff into it to increase the difficulty and the challenge, or to work on other elements or different elements than what I've laid out here. That wraps up this session breakdown here on the Manager's Journey YouTube channel. So hopefully you've enjoyed it and taken some things away from it. I'd like to know what you think about the session itself and obviously the video. So please let me know your feelings about it in the comments below, or you can find me on Twitter. Please feel free to go and check out the Manager's Journey blog. We've recently done an interview with Paul Watson, who coached the Pohnpei state team, and we've got a whole interview about his journey and his time in Mongolia, as well as getting the Conifer World Football Cup in London in 2018. That's an excellent read, so I suggest you go over and read that. So links to that will be in the description. So yeah, like I say, hopefully you've enjoyed this video and learned some things and taken some things away, and I'd hope to see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.